Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
It's great to be here.
This time, we're heading back to Macomb, Alabama, cracking open Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird.
Such a powerful story.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, talk about a classic.
Yeah.
And we've got some really interesting excerpts lined up, so get ready to revisit Scout's world. It's like stepping back into those childhood summers. You know, lazy days, small town secrets.
And those big, universal questions about justice and doing what's right, even when it's tough.
Exactly, and Lee she nails it, especially the way she tackles these huge issues through a child's eyes.
You're right, it's Scout's perspective that makes it so powerful, so honest.
So Scout Finch, our narrator, she's this bright, curious girl right in the thick of it all.
Macomb, Alabama, in the 1930s. A time and place steeped in, well, you know.
Oh, we know. Deeply ingrained prejudice. Exactly.
But Scout, she cuts through it all with this innocence, you know?
And it allows us, as readers, to kind of experience the weight of that adult world right alongside her, but with this fresh perspective.
It's like seeing it all through new eyes. So let's picture it. Macomb, Alabama.
Dusty roads, slow pace of life.
It almost feels timeless, right? And it's here we meet Scout, her brother Jem, and their friend Dill.
Spending their summer days caught up in the mystery of Boo Radley.
Oh, Boo Radley, their reclusive
Her
neighbor.
Radley place, it becomes this enigma for them.
This forbidden zone.
Fueling all sorts of rumors and dares, typical childhood stuff.
But it represents something deeper, don't you think? This fear of the unknown, fear of what's different.
Absolutely, and that fear gets amplified by all the social anxieties of that time. Because, let's face it, Boo's basically a legend in Macomb. This almost monstrous figure hiding in the shadows.
At least that's how everyone sees him.
Precisely, and he becomes a symbol of...
Well, of what happens when fear and prejudice go unchecked.
When we let those things dictate how we see other people. And yet, and here's the thing, Scout and Jem, they keep finding these little gifts left for them, tucked away in the knothole of a tree on the Radley property.
Little things, like a watch, some chewing gum.
A spelling medal even, almost like someone's secretly watching over them.
Challenging those assumptions about Boo.
It's this beautiful contradiction, right?
And it's so clever how Lee uses these small acts of kindness to hint at something more.
To foreshadow Boo's true nature, his capacity for empathy.
These small gestures, they're like breadcrumbs of compassion.
I love that. Breadcrumbs of compassion.
And they set the stage for Boo's actions later in the story.
And it makes you think how easily we can misjudge people based on appearances or what we hear from others. But then things in Macomb take a turn, a much more serious turn, with the trial of Tom Robinson.
And this is where Lee really delves into the heart of racial injustice.
In the South, during the 1930s.
A time and place, as we said, deeply marked by segregation and prejudice.
Jim Crow laws, the whole system.
Inequality wasn't just accepted, it was the law.
And into this climate steps Atticus Finch,
Scout's father.
and the moral compass of this whole story. He agrees to defend Tom Robinson, a black man falsely accused of a crime against a white woman.
And in doing so, Atticus, he becomes this beacon of courage.
He knows he's going to face backlash, even danger.
But he chooses to do what he believes is right.
To uphold his principles, even if it means standing alone. It's inspiring, really.
He's the embodiment of integrity. Someone who makes you want to be better, to stand up for what you believe in.
No matter the cost. Absolutely. Now, Scout and Jem, they're just kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't fully grasp everything going on with the trial.
They just know their dad is defending this man.
And they trust Atticus completely.
And that innocence, that unwavering faith, it really highlights the injustice of the whole situation.
Makes it hit even harder.
We're seeing it all unfold through their confused and bewildered eyes,
Amplifying the emotional impact for us as readers. Because it's heartbreaking to witness. You have the Ewells, Bob Ewell and his daughter Mayella, and their testimonies are full of holes, lies even.
Yet the jury, you get the sense they're already swayed.
Just because of Tom's race?
It's a chilling example of how prejudice can overshadow truth.
How deeply ingrained biases can be, even when the evidence points in a completely different direction.
It doesn't matter that Atticus dismantles their claims.
Or that Tom physically couldn't have done what they're accusing him of.
The jury's decision, you sense, it's already made before the trial even begins.
Driven by something much deeper, much uglier.
Prejudice, plain and simple.
And for Scout and Jem, the verdict is this crushing blow. It forces them to confront a reality they never wanted to see.
This harsh reality of the world they're growing up in.
It's a brutal loss of innocence.
Especially for Jem. He breaks down after the verdict.
He can't reconcile the fairness Atticus has always taught him with the hate he sees in that courtroom.
And tragically, it gets even worse.
Tom is later killed trying to escape prison.
Denied justice, even in death.
And the way Maycomb just accepts it, moves on.
It shows how deeply ingrained racism is in their world.
Like Tom's life doesn't even matter.
Reduced to a statistic.
It's heartbreaking. But even in this darkness, there's a glimmer of hope. And it comes from an unexpected source. Boo Radley.
The recluse, the figure everyone fears.
Remember those little gifts? Turns out, those were just the beginning of Boo's role in their lives.
He becomes this unseen protector.
A guardian angel almost, watching over them from the shadows.
A stark contrast to how everyone else perceives him.
And this connection, it deepens even further when Scout and Jem are attacked.
Walking home from a Halloween pageant.
They were vulnerable, alone in the dark.
And notice how Lee sets that scene. The attack doesn't happen on the Radley property like you might expect.
It happens out in the open.
Highlighting that the threat, the danger, it can be anywhere.
It disregards boundaries, social or otherwise.
And just when things seem their darkest, who shows up?
Boo Radley.
Emerging from the shadows, literally.
He saves them.
Good conquering evil, like something out of one of Jem and Scout's stories.
Talk about a twist. The man Maycomb feared for so long becomes their unlikely savior.
Challenging everything we thought we knew about him. About fear itself, even.
Right. And of course, Sheriff Tate, he figures out what happened, knows Boo was the one who saved Jem and Scout.
But instead of dragging Boo into the spotlight,
He decides to protect him.
he recognizes that for someone like Boo, someone who's lived his whole life in the shadows,
Being thrust into the public eye would do more harm than good.
it's about understanding, compassion.
It's about knowing that true justice isn't always about following the letter of the law.
Sometimes it's about doing what's right for the individual.
Showing empathy.
Exactly. And that's a key theme throughout this whole story.
It really is. And the ending, Lee just nails it. Scout, she walks Boo home. And for the first time, she truly sees him. Not as a monster, but as a person.
A kind, vulnerable person.
In that act of walking him home.
It's a powerful symbol of Scout's own growth.
She's not that naive little girl from the beginning anymore, is she?
No, she's maturing, beginning to understand the complexities of the world.
She's learning that compassion, understanding they're far more important than judging someone based on appearances or rumors.
She's internalizing everything Atticus has been trying to teach her.
And in doing so, she gives us this glimmer of hope for the future. A future where empathy might just win out over fear and prejudice.
It's a powerful message.
Powerful and incredibly relevant even today.
It really is. Lee's story, it stays with you long after you finish the last page.
It really does. But there's so much more to uncover, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. This is just the beginning.
So much to unpack about justice, prejudice, the power of perspective.
And the ways in which our own biases can shape how we see the world.
So stick with us. We're going to take a quick break and then dive even deeper into To Kill a Mockingbird. So we're back and really digging into these themes of justice and prejudice.
And it's interesting how that shift in perspective, Scott's shift, it mirrors what Lee wants us to do as readers.
To look beyond the surface.
To recognize the humanity in everyone, even those we might initially fear or misunderstand.
Like Boo. But it's not just about individual characters, right?
Right, it extends to the whole community.
To the systemic racism and prejudice that defined Maycomb.
And sadly, so many other places at that time.
The way Tom Robinson is treated, the casual racism in everyday conversations.
It's a stark reminder of how ingrained these attitudes can be.
How they can infect an entire society.
And Lee doesn't shy away from showing the consequences.
Tom's death is a powerful indictment of a system that valued race over truth and justice. A system that saw a black man as disposable.
A system that needed to change.
And that fight for equality and justice is still going on today.
It is.
Makes you realize how important it is to be aware of our own biases.
To challenge prejudice wherever we see it.
Because it's so easy to fall into those traps, to judge others without really knowing them.
We all do it, to some extent.
It's human nature, I guess.
But we have a responsibility to do better.
To learn from the mistakes of the past. And that's where the individual acts of courage and compassion come in.
Exactly, like what Atticus does when he takes on Tom's case.
Knowing it could cost him everything.
He becomes a symbol of what it means to stand up for what's right.
Even when it's dangerous. Even when it's unpopular.
And even small acts of kindness, like those offered by Boo.
they matter too.
They can have a ripple effect.
And ultimately, it's that empathy, that ability to see the world through someone else's eyes.
That's what has the power to bridge those divides.
And it's certainly what transforms Scout.
From that curious child to
A young woman who understands the complexities of the world.
who sees the injustice and chooses compassion.
And her journey, it's a hopeful one, don't you think?
It is.
Because it reminds us that people can change.
That we can learn to be better, to do better.
And that even in the face of darkness, there's always hope.
And that hope, it often comes from the most unexpected places.
Like a reclusive neighbor who leaves gifts in a tree.
Or a father who risks everything to defend an innocent man.
And that's the power of To Kill a Mockingbird, isn't it?
It's a story that stays with you.
That makes you think about the world differently.
And maybe, just maybe, inspires you to make a difference.
We stand up for what's right, to show compassion.
To be a force for good in the world.
And we could all use a little more of that, right?
And agree more.
And you know what's interesting? At the beginning, Scout, she's fascinated by Boo Radley. Like, she wants to meet him, see what he's all about.
Yeah, that childhood curiosity.
Exactly. But by the end, after the trial, seeing how Boo's treated, how he acts to protect them, she gets it. She understands that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is protect someone from the spotlight.
From the judgment and scrutiny.
It's like she's learned more than just facts from Atticus. She's internalized that empathy.
Recognizing that true compassion often means putting someone else's needs first.
Even if it means letting go of your own curiosity, which, for Scout, is huge.
It is. It shows real growth.
And that final scene, Scout walking Boo home.
It's such a quiet but powerful moment.
There's this unspoken understanding between them.
An acknowledgement of their shared humanity.
That goes beyond words. Just this quiet grace.
A testament to the idea that empathy can bridge even the deepest divides.
And as you finish the book, you're left with this sense of, well,
hope.
Yeah, hope. This belief that even in a world filled with injustice and ugliness, compassion can still exist.
And that it can bloom in the most unexpected places.
Absolutely. And it reminds us that change starts with us, right?
It does.
With each of us choosing to be a little more understanding, a little more compassionate.
Like Atticus.
Challenging those prejudices, those assumptions we all carry.
It's a powerful message, and it's one that resonates just as strongly today as it did when Lee first wrote it.
Maybe even more so. To Kill a Mockingbird, it's more than just a coming-of-age story.
It's a call to action.
A reminder that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and compassionate world.
A world where everyone is seen and valued for who they truly are.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to have to say goodbye to Mako, at least for now. But the conversation doesn't have to end here.
No, it doesn't.
So keep thinking about those big questions, keep challenging yourselves, and keep those conversations going. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.